the echo of her sins. In the sleepy town of Willow Brook, where the streets were quiet and the nights even quieter, a girl named Lila lived a life that no one would have suspected of harboring darkness. She was charming, with a smile that could light up a room and eyes that concealed a secret hunger. But beneath the surface, Lila harbored a twisted obsession, a craving for control and power over others. One summer evening, Lila set her sights on a boy named Tommy. He was quiet, introverted, and the perfect target for her insidious desires. With sweet words and a false sense of kindness, she lured Tommy to an abandoned cabin deep in the woods, far from the prying eyes of the town. The moment they crossed the threshold of the decaying cabin, Tommy's fate was sealed. Lila's demeanor shifted from warmth to cold calculation. She trapped him, binding his hands and feet with rope, and a sinister smile played on her lips as she watched the terror fill his eyes. Over the next few days, Lila tormented Tommy, relishing in his fear and pain. She toyed with him, psychologically and physically, breaking him down until he was a shadow of the boy who had walked into the woods. Her cruelty knew no bounds, and when she had finally had her fill, she ended his suffering with a knife to the heart. But Lila's madness didn't stop there. She methodically dismembered his body, the cabin's walls witnessing her gruesome work. Once the deed was done, she set a fire that consumed the remains, erasing any trace of her heinous act. Lila returned to town, her secret safe, the town none the wiser about the monster that lurked behind her innocent facade. Days turned into weeks, and Lila believed she had gotten away with murder. But one night, as she lay in bed, the air in her room grew cold. A whisper echoed through the darkness, Tommy's voice, distorted by death, filled with malice. "Why did you do it, Lila?" Panic gripped her, but when she opened her eyes, she saw nothing. Yet the feeling of being watched, of something lurking in the shadows, persisted. Each night, the presence grew stronger. Tommy's ghost began to haunt her, appearing at the edge of her vision, his body mangled and burned, his eyes filled with the torment she had inflicted upon him. No one else could see Tommy's vengeful spirit, but Lila could feel him, hear him, every second of every day. He tormented her, whispering the horrors she had committed, driving her to the brink of insanity. He would appear in the mirror when she was alone, in the corner of her room at night, and once even in her dreams where she was the one bound and helpless, and Tommy was the one with the knife. Lila's once calm demeanor unraveled as Tommy's ghost sought his revenge. The whispers turned to screams, the visions more vivid, more terrifying. The walls of her home dripped with blood only she could see, and the smell of burning flesh followed her wherever she went. In the final days, Lila was a shell of her former self, driven mad by the relentless haunting. She would scream into the night, begging for forgiveness, for mercy, but Tommy's ghost offered none. The town began to whisper about the strange sounds coming from her house, the way Lila had become a haunted figure herself, pale and gaunt, eyes wide with fear. One night, unable to bear the torment any longer, Lila took the same knife she had used on Tommy and ended her life, hoping to escape the ghost that had driven her mad. But death offered no peace. As her soul left her body, she found herself in the cabin where she had killed Tommy, now bound, her limbs heavy and cold. And there stood Tommy's ghost, whole and menacing, his eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of vengeance. "Now, it's your turn, Lila," he whispered, as the darkness closed in. In Willow Brook, the house where Lila lived remained empty. The townsfolk spoke of hearing cries and whispers coming from inside, of shadows moving past the windows. Some said it was haunted by a boy who had died too young. Others whispered it was the girl who had lost her mind. But everyone agreed on one thing: whatever was inside, it was better left undisturbed. The town moved on, but the echoes of that night lingered, a chilling reminder that some sins are never truly buried. As the years passed, the abandoned cabin where Lila committed her gruesome crime became a local legend. Teenagers dared each other to visit it on moonless nights, but few had the courage to enter. Those who did reported hearing faint whispers in the wind, soft cries for help, and the unmistakable smell of burning wood. The cabin itself seemed to have a life of its own. Doors would slam shut on their own, and shadows would move without any source of light. One stormy evening, a group of curious teenagers, emboldened by the thrill of the unknown, decided to venture into the cabin. Armed with flashlights and nervous laughter, they stepped into the decaying structure. The air inside was thick and heavy, pressing down on them like a weight. As they explored the dark corners, they stumbled upon a knife, rusty and stained, lying on the floor. The moment one of them picked it up, the temperature dropped sharply, and the whispers turned into anguished screams. Suddenly, the door to the cabin slammed shut, trapping them inside. The walls began to bleed, the once dry wood now oozing a dark, sticky substance. The screams grew louder, more desperate, and the group realized with horror that they weren't alone. The ghostly figures of Tommy and Lila materialized before them, locked in a deadly dance of revenge and suffering. The teenagers watched in terror as the apparitions reenacted the gruesome murder, Lila's screams mingling with Tommy's vengeful laughter. The scene was a horrifying reminder that the past, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of clawing its way back to the surface.